Good evening, everybody. Give me a moment, just getting some gears set up here for us. And again, we'll be going live later as well, about 1 hour, but I'm going to do a little bit of a preview show here and trying to just get some stuff set up for you. So hang tight as I just get these parts in order, and we'll see you in just a minute. Letting some friends join us in here. Say hello in the chat space. In about 1 hour, we'll have Denys Glushko. We'll actually restart everything, but it's been a very busy day. Good to see you, Dave. Other friends we know are going to pop in here. And again, in about an hour, we'll rebuild the space. I'll just use the phone at that point to talk with our good brother Davis Glushko. And we have our 4 nights of interviews planned for tonight, tomorrow night, Thursday night, and of course on Friday. So let's get started. If we look at the air raid map currently, we have the map has actually been fully read earlier, just about an hour ago, and it reduced to ballistics. But at this point, we have activity in Chernihiv and Sumy, Kharkiv Oblast, of course, Donetsk and Luhansk and Zaporizhia. But again, it was fired up quite a bit earlier. So welcome, welcome, welcome. Good evening, Dobry Večer. Chris Sampson here in Kyiv. And it's been a very, very busy day, largely due to the attacks last night. And we'll go over that in just a minute. 1 second. Make sure I have my bits up here. Oh, wait. Ukrainian achieves breakthrough. This is very interesting before I get to this. It's very important. Дуже важливо. RBC breaks this tonight, just a little bit ago, 17:15 no less, that says Ukraine has achieved a significant result in bringing back children from areas under Russian control, successfully returning 2,000. Wow. Miners home, according to President Volodymyr Zelensky. Today, we have achieved a significant result. 2,000 children have been brought home from under Russia's control through Bring Back Kids UAA initiative. That's good. I will reach out to my friend Kateryna Rashevska, who we've talked to many times about this, and that's fantastic news. But right now, I want to look at the map from last night, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit before we'll take a pause. I'm only going to go about 30 minutes on this segment, and then we will come back this evening in about 1 hour. See, it's 9 o'clock now. Hold on. Yeah, 9 o'clock precisely here in Kyiv, and at 10 o'clock we will go live with our interview with my friend Denys Glushko, one of the journalists that here. I'd really like to see his posts, and I know he knows his shit, so I hope you'll join us then. Tomorrow we're going to have Chloe Kraft on to talk about journalism as it goes forward in her visit here to Kyiv. And then on Thursday, we'll have Colonel Morris Davis, former Chief Justice, if you will, of Guantanamo Bay, who quit after Stephen Haynes tried to force him to say that there would be no acquittals. And then, of course, Friday, we have our report with Shaun Pinner. But going back to this attack map, you can see that the attack last night was very loud across the country. Here in Kyiv, we actually had it fairly quiet. That's not unusual. At which point, we just try to, we're always prepared, but it's let's see, hold on, there we go. Trying to pull up my data here. Um, we have to see. Let's see, where's my data? I have a data sheet for yesterday. I have so many things. Ooh, we have some bombers moving around the air. Give me a minute. I've got a lot of data here. Okay, one second. One second. So last night, 20 Ka-101s. We had four Iskander-Ks launched. We had Ka-59s and 69s, and then we had around nearly 400 Shahed uh, drones. And if you see where the attack map was, these are the launch points and the strike points. Um, the targets were mostly in the west of Ukraine, trying to hit power facilities there. But I know I have friends in Lviv that said they heard some of the activity that was going on. And it stayed that way well into the morning. I know that in Dnipro, Sean and others have said that they got a lot of loud booms going on. Don't forget to follow Sean's post on both Substack and on Twitter, that other platform. And so I posted an article today about the compilation of missiles and drones from 2022, 2023, 2024, 25, and 26 so far, showing that the escalation is significant. And when you hear Donald Trump go out and say that Ukrainians should show up at the negotiations, bro, we know that they are. They're already there. They're already serving tea and borscht for you guys to catch up. I'm working on a report that I'm going to put it out tomorrow because I want to still fine tune some of the details about the delegates that come from the Russian side, because they're a who's who of spies and or ideological propagandists, and therefore not anyone who's ever studied diplomacy, not interested in diplomacy in the slightest bit. You can tell because, again, look at the map. And we see that today, Umarov and others have already established where they're going to be at with this. They're very skilled at understanding what the Russians are going to do. So my prediction is that they will have to lean in on the American delegation to get as much out of it as possible, knowing that the way in which the Americans under Witkoff and Kushner, who have no formal ability to be doing this task, but it is what it is, and it is what they'll be doing, that they have the chance to at least pull the levers on them and get as much out of it as possible. And if there's anyone who knows how these guys work, it's the Ukrainians who understand the Russians. I'm going to read some of the comments that you have in the space, or I keep saying space. We're so Twitter wired, yeah. But AZ says, seems defenses took out most of them last night. Can you confirm this? It looks that way. Yes, the intercept rates were good, and it's important when you are back home, wherever it's in America, Europe, that you're telling your delegates at your official level, being Congress or your Parliament, to make sure air defense supplies are adequately equipped. If they're not adequately equipped, then we have nights like I've seen here before where there's nothing to intercept the incoming missiles. In fact, I even said to a great friend of mine who's an anti-war activist I've known for years, we used to talk about the weapons making industry with such cynicism, and I understand why. But if you believe in making sure that I'm okay, your friend, you want, when that Patriot goes up, you want something to be able to intercept it. Yes? Well, yes, of course. Okay, good. So those are supplied by the very companies we used to rail against. And I will be over time trying to do more to approach the progressive audience in this capacity, because I understand, at least a lot of what drives them. Also, Ukraine has been stepping up its attacks on the very weapons facilitation that happens on the Russian side. So there were definitely activities on that side. I did not get a chance to compile the specifics, but I do have an article that has already been up here on Substack about a week and a half ago, about a week ago, where I kind of went through that data and showed you how it had progressed from the first year until current times. So that when arguments were made before, and I challenged these at the time based on firsthand consultation here in country, that the administration under Biden had been telling someone not to strike oil facilities, especially the cynical view it had been done for election campaign concerns and others. I don't take opinions lightly. I believe that opinions should be informed by facts and by examination. So, how do you examine those things here? Well, you can go to the officials on this side and kind of do the is someone telling you not to do something? Wink, wink, nod this way, do this, something where I can see are you being hijacked by the administration? Because I'd rather use my microphone and my pen to push back, especially if they're American and I'm real sensitive about that because I get to see the results. Mikhail Podolyak was actually in. He's an advisor to Zelensky. He was in Politico. He was at RBC first, and then Political EU, pushing back on that. And then I confirmed to the Office Plus personal questioning at him at one of the next events. Did you ever get told this? And not only is the answer no, but it's dangerous because it created a fissure, and that's one of the big things we have to be careful of is a fissure between support abroad and support needed here. But the data and the numbers show that that also was not really a thing. Why does it matter? Because Celeste Wallander at the time was asked cynically by a what do you want to call it soundbite attempt by a Republican who if I don't have the name in front of me, but there were a couple of them that were they had voted for support for Ukraine, but some hesitations, and yet there are a few others like Josh Hawley who had been all over the map and including against. So they were obviously trying to frame it as the Biden administration was somehow trying to prevent strikes on oil facilities. I'm going to be very clear. I think that the Biden administration did not pull the George Creel method it needed, like Woodrow Wilson did, to get the ground game out across the country as well as it could have. But the data shows clearly that any effort that was designed to, inhibit Russian aggression was not stalled. Now, where was it stalled? With certain levels of American weaponry for reasons that are spelled out by the Americans at the time. And again, I disagree with that. Most of our supporters disagree with that, but let's keep facts as they are so when we make assessments, they're spot on. Why was Wallander's commentary important when she says, well, when they're civilian facilities, we raise concerns? She did not say because there were because they were civilian facilities. We said we raised objections, and or said no. She says raise concerns. If you have the current condition where Russia is striking our energy facilities here in Ukraine across the country, not just literally a kilometer and a half from my studio, no less. You can get the well, they're doing it, so we're doing it argument and the American Pentagon level advisors like Wallander, who had many years experience in that position, was making something very clear to the rest of us. Yes, there are concerns when laws of war are applied, but did she say any had been violated? No. And if you don't speak Diplo, maybe you missed that. Additionally, there was a twist in what was said by General Lloyd Austin III. There were people who said that he said, yes, we understand that it would not have a knock on effect of oil prices, but we believe the following. Hold on. I'm getting sound outside. I just want to see what that's from. Forgive me. And just double checking what we got. Okay, not air raid. Oh, why am I looking at my phone? We have the air raid map right here on the screen. So he said, but we believe Ukraine is in its best interest to go after legitimate military targets. General Lloyd Austin III absolutely knows and understands that oil facilities that enable the war against Ukraine and like the drone manufacturing facilities are legitimate targets. So there's no contradictions in what he says. Why was all that a thing? Because you're in Congress. And if you've watched, for instance, the Jack Straw hearing just a few weeks ago, that's how it's played. And when you have straight-laced people, this is one of the things that always drives me nuts when those games are played in Congress. When you have straightforward people at the diplomatic level or Pentagon level who are not game players versus people who are looking for sound bites of any side, then you're going to have two types of conversation going on, and we want to make sure that all of our viewers are very mindful of this. So let's see here. Also, AZ says, "Stop the war. Left have a little understanding about need for defenses. Their idealism prevents their understanding the need for military-industrial complex. Been around them long enough in a past life to know that." Yeah, spot on. And I think that like tonight, one of the trolls who tried to suck up oxygen on X says, there was no accountability, and Zelensky made all these billions. We know that that's not true. It's the New York Times article that they referenced was about decisions that were made here about oversight, and you can question those, you can discuss those, but it's not. There's no way that billions are going in Zelensky's pockets. As I have written about with corruption, when you have the investigations at certain levels happening, that's good because you have an accountability. If you didn't have that, that would be a problem. It's bad when it happens, of course, any of the cases that happen. We'll talk about that tonight with Denys, so I hope you'll join us back here at the top of the hour. And I'm going to wrap up here in about just a few more minutes. But the IG report and all those accountability measures that are in the United States are very important to understand. There was also in this troll's response, which I don't mind some of the times that these happen. The troll's response also said that Democrats pushed against accountability. No, what Democrats pushed against, and I had to double check, I wanted to look, I wanted to make sure, I don't like to make mistakes, is that Democrats had wanted to make sure there was no additional office created when we already had offices created to do the job. If you already have oversight, creating a whole other special counsel to do such and such a thing that you already have oversight for was the argument made by Democrats of redundancy and additional expenses when we already had those in play. Also, remember, 51% of Republicans had voted against helping Ukraine in any way, shape, or form, and 100% of the Democrats, minus a couple seats that are either dying and not present. And I went directly to the squad and the people we would expect to have voted against one of the aid packages later in the program. For instance, when it came to Israel funding, I was absolutely certain I was going to find three or four of those. No, they voted for the very package that funded weapons to Israel and support to Ukraine. A little bit surprising to me, but it is what it is. Those are the facts, and that's the votes that are on record. So the foggery that we often see are always coming out of the Republican Party, which is why today, when a Ukrainian who lives in Europe says to Senator Blumenthal, "I want action, not words," Senator Blumenthal has actually sponsored the appropriate legislation to help Ukraine. Therefore, it's kind of a really silly argument to go after someone who actually, not only votes the correct way, but has come here many times and been a solid action-based supporter for Ukraine. Instead, aim that at the Lindsey Grahams that really talk out of one side of their mouth and then do another, or even worse, like Marco Rubio yesterday, and you can go see the article I wrote about his visit. So that's a quick report, and thank you for joining us. And we will be back. We're just going to. I just came on real quick because I didn't want to take up the time tonight with Denys to go through these details of this particular strike again, just so we could see last night's strike data and from Monitor War. And on the article I have posted up here on Substack right now, I have made a link to their Telegram account, and there's a monobank card there. If you have Western Union, I have found that this is true for um, Westerners, for Americans. You can send money to that monobank account. I may have to double check if how you list who the recipient is, because the recipient often, when I spend money here that's outside of my credit card level, and I have to have a monobank, I know who it's to, and I know their account number. So that is where we're at right now, and I want to thank you for this quick report. I'm going to wrap it up now, and we'll come back again at the top of the hour, which will be 10 p.m. Kyiv time, for Denys Glushko to talk about some of the reporting he's going to cover today. Tomorrow we'll have Chloe Kraft talk about journalism, and especially her visit here. And then I want to really keep a regular segment up on Wiretap about journalism, as we have had so much attack on it from, Jeff Bezos firing so many staffers, and quality journalists, no less. And the Barry Weiss debacle at CBS. And let me leave it with this: when you have Stephen Colbert on your ass, as happened last night, where he had to highlight that they interfered with who his guest list would be from the top, you're losing. The First Amendment is there for a reason. Stop manipulating the media, and for those who do, don't forget, all of us independent types, we're watching you. That's it for right now. See you shortly. Slava Ukraini, Heroyam Slava i Pizdets Rossiyska Federacji. And before we go, let's hear another clip that I made last week with Kateryna Rashevska about what you can do to bring home more Ukrainian children.
So I'm here with Kateryna, and I want to hear what citizens can do, since the government is obviously paralyzed a bit. What can average citizens do, you think, in the West to help our situation here?
So first of all, continue to support Ukraine and Ukrainian non-governmental organizations who are directly involved in the process of repatriation of children. Share the knowledge about these crimes of the Russian Federation, because now we are facing extreme efforts of the aggressor state to promote false narratives just in order to minimize this support, just in order to aggravate the situation and to create additional obstacles to the return of Ukrainian kids. Also, we need some academic publications, some sort of partnership at the level of academic institutions, because we see that Russian studies, they are more frequent than Ukrainian studies, and that is why some of the Russian narratives are penetrating into academic publications, and it means that unfortunately Russian attempts to destroy the reality, to destroy history about this crime, they will be more or less successful. I suppose that this is the most important thing. Just remember about these kids, because 90% of them, those who were abducted after 2014, they remain under Russian control. And when we are saving all this information, collecting it, when we are sharing this knowledge, we are also contributing to maybe to the fact that someday these children who were abducted will understand that maybe they were also subjected to this crime. And they will start to collect information from open sources in order to understand more. So it is about long game. It is not about something only for today, but it is very valuable for us.
And second and last question. We just heard yesterday that Washington Post dismissed 300 journalists, including the Ukraine Bureau. So journalists stepping in to help this gap, how can they be more aggressive in getting the information out there? What would you like to see from the press?
So for me, this news about the Washington Post in Ukraine were really sad, because I had a good cooperation with journalists, and I know that they were planning to gather more and more information in order to prepare new materials, including the situation of Ukrainian children in occupation, with the narrative that occupation is not peace. Now everything will be stopped. And everything despite Russian propaganda and Russian information efforts, just to distort the reality abroad, including in the United States. And that is why we should do our best in order to support Ukrainian independent journalists, including English speakers inside Ukraine, including such outlets, Kyiv Independent and others, in order to speak with foreign audiences. Because here in Ukraine, it seems that people are more or less aware about these kids and about this crime. But abroad, as a person who are traveling and advocating in different states, I see that it is not enough. It is always not enough in comparison with efforts of the Russian Federation.
І ми працюємо разом, так?
Yes, we are working together because only this sustainable approach, when we are fighting till the moment when the last abducted child will transfer the border to Ukrainian controlled areas, this is the only guarantee to win this war for Ukrainian future and for Ukrainian children.
Дякую вам.
Дякую.
And we'll be right back. See you in 30 minutes.